had quite literally a double whammy of an upbringing that just spoon-fed me codependency. I really had no shot, if we're being honest, with a disabled mother and an absent father. It was just a textbook case of disorganized attachment, anxious attachment, the whole 9 yards. So let's talk about how I healed it. If you don't know me, my name is Haley. I'm your realistic and balanced bestie, helping you build a stronger brain and body. Today we're diving deep on how to go from anxiously attached to securely attached. And this is going to be a step-by-step guide with actionable tasks, journal prompts, everything that you need to do to actually achieve this goal. And I created it like this because when I was looking on how to heal, how to overcome codependency, things like that, I felt like everything was very vague. There was general advice. There wasn't really too much advice on how to actually do it. What steps do you actually need to take to overcome this? How can I do it? What do I need to do? Like, I felt like there just wasn't enough of that. So that's what I'm here for. So you can follow along with just this video, or you can follow along with this as a course on my app where you get a little bit of extra reading, some meditations, some just more in-depth things that you can do to help you heal codependency, but it is totally not necessary. You can absolutely still have the transformation you want with just this advice here alone. But either way, you are about to learn how to actually break this cycle, so let's get into it. Chapter number 1 is understanding attachment styles. So codependency is typically a product of an anxious attachment style, and as someone with an anxious attachment style, you might feel like when you're dating someone, your brain is just constantly filled with thoughts of them, what they're doing, what they think about you, do they like me, what's going on, are they gonna leave me? You are just a little unhealthily obsessed. And that's because anxious attachment is essentially a strong fear of abandonment, and that's gonna make you put the needs of other people above yourself because you're just trying to do whatever you can to make sure that these people don't leave you. And unfortunately, as I'm sure you probably know, this actually does the opposite. When you're clinging onto someone and you're making them your entire life, you're actually pushing them away to a degree, especially because people who are anxiously attached tend to draw people who are avoidantly attached into their life. Codependents also typically stay in relationships way longer than they know that they should because they're not strong enough to break it off. You're constantly trying to convince yourself that this could be a good relationship and that you should just stay in it. And once the other person breaks it off, you're actually feeding your brain more of what you already think. So you're like, oh, see, everyone does abandon me. Like, I should just cling on harder to the next person so that they won't leave me because, well, I didn't do it hard enough this time. So maybe if I try harder next time. And you're just creating an endless cycle that is never going to get you where you want to go. Essentially, someone with an anxious attachment style has very low sense of self and really just has no security in themselves at all. And again, I'm saying this as someone who was codependent and was very anxiously attached. So like, I know this feels like a little bit of an attack, but trust me, I'm attacking myself as well. And because we lack the security and this sense of safety in ourselves, we are constantly trying to prove ourselves to our partners and make them give us this sense of security, but they are never going to give it to us in the way that we need because what we're actually needing is just internal validation. So our first task to kind of figure out how to start attacking this head on and actually get some progress made here is we're going to start with this journal prompt. We're going to start by listing all of our long-term or impactful relationships. This doesn't even have to be a long-term relationship. It could just be like a 3-month situationship that just absolutely tormented you and ruined your life and you're sitting here like traumatized by it. We're gonna add that to the list. So you're gonna list out all of them. I listed 4 or 5. I felt like there was like 4 or 5 relationships that really made an impact on me and that I really could look back at and be like, okay, I can analyze this from an outside perspective. So for each of the relationships that you listed out, you're going to kind of create a summary of just what happened in this relationship, kind of how it started, any red flags that you saw, just common patterns that you saw throughout this relationship, where they're the same fights that were happening over and over, was they're the same kind of feelings that you ended up feeling throughout this relationship. Whatever it was that was impactful about this relationship, we're gonna just make a summary of it. You can do this bullet point style, you could just write it down in your phone, whatever you want, just getting it all out there. You are also going to kind of summarize how you felt during each one of those situations. So if you saw red flags, you're gonna summarize how you felt when you would see those red flags. If there was common fights that were going on, summarizing how those fights made you feel and what you thought about after each fight. And you are even going to write down how you tried to solve situations, where there are times that you went to this person and you were like, hey, this is a problem, this is what's going on, and how did that end up? After you made your feelings known, did you feel like they were validated, invalidated? Did you leave the conversation confused? Were you leaving the conversation doubting yourself? What just what was going on. We're gonna just summarize it all here. And once you've got this all out on paper, on your phone, whatever it is, you're going to try to find the patterns here. So even if the pattern is just a similar feeling that you had throughout all these relationships, maybe each one left you feeling invalidated or confused, or you were a little bit gaslit sometimes. Whatever the common patterns are here, you're going to try to condense them into like 3 to 5 common themes that you're seeing in your relationship. And once we have these common themes, you can kind of analyze it a little bit further and just start to think about the relationships you saw in your life. Did you see your parents go through things like this? Whatever your themes are, this is going to be a little bit more personal to every single person. So there's not really a specific journal prompt that you can have to analyze things once you get to this point. But once you have those themes, you really just have to take from an outside perspective and look at them and be like, where would I have learned that this is okay? Why did I tolerate this? Especially if it's something that you tolerated multiple times in multiple relationships, you need to be kind of harsh with yourself and just look at it like you're looking at a friend and be like, hey girl, I don't know why you keep tolerating cheating, but something is going on and we need to figure out what it is. Why are you so okay with letting people walk all over you? What's going on here? Where did this come from? Let's figure it out. And that is kind of how you have to attack each one of these common themes, because there's really no other way to get to it. You have to figure out what this stems from. Now, at the end of each chapter, I also am going to throw up some solo date ideas, because I think that solo dating is one of the best ways to start combating codependency and start getting comfortable by yourself. And you can start off really, really small. I started off with just like coffee dates by myself. At first, I was even just like bringing my laptop, bringing a book, bringing whatever, because it was still a little bit weird to just go somewhere completely alone. But it's the small baby steps that are going to make a big difference. And then eventually you're going to be going to the movies by yourself. Last year I went to 2 concerts alone, and like I just absolutely loved it. And it all started because I started going on teeny tiny little solo dates in the very beginning. I'm also going to give you an individual challenge for each chapter. So for chapter number 1, the challenge here is going to be to try to cut out one thing for 7 days. And this could be anything. It might be alcohol, it might be using your phone after a certain time, it might be that toxic ex that you keep texting every single night. Whatever it is, you're gonna cut out one thing for 7 days. And this doesn't even have to be relationship related at all. It could literally just be soda, anything, whatever it is. We are just teaching ourselves to trust ourselves and to trust that we can hold ourselves accountable to keeping something out of our lives. Because once we build that muscle and we're like, okay, I cut this out, I can do this, we are slowly building trust in ourselves to cut out more major things later on down the road, so that eventually you can be like, okay, I am no longer tolerating this certain behavior. And you're trusting that you can do that because you've built that up by slowly building up things that you've cut out of your life. Chapter number 2 is inner child healing. And I know the whole concept of inner child is like a little woo-woo and like a little hippie if you don't fully grasp it. But the truth is that every single one of us has an inner child. Like that is just something that is a fact. And this inner child is still in you, and they still get a little bit triggered sometimes. And there are things that happen in your life that are affecting your inner child, and you're sitting there as a grown adult being like, why does this upset me? Why do I feel some way about this? And that's because you still have your inner child inside of you. You also have your inner teenager in there, but that is a whole another concept, and that is a crazy thing to try to heal. Anxious attachment can actually sometimes be caused by inconsistent parenting. And just like a lot of things, most things start in our childhood, and a lot of times we don't even realize it until it's almost too late. And it doesn't even take a crazy, traumatic, or insane upbringing to cause an anxious attachment style, unfortunately, because there are just so many factors that could have caused our parents to not be able to meet our needs the way that we needed. Even if they were doing their absolute best, it still might not have been enough. And a lot of it boils down to codependence believing that they have to earn love, or that they have to prove that they're worthy of love to be able to be given love, instead of just believing and knowing that they're already worthy of it regardless of how they act or what they do. And unfortunately, because there's not one picture perfect idea of an anxious attachment style or anything like that, there's not one cure-all that's going to magically fix you and make all of this go away. But the beauty of it is that the further you get along this healing journey, and the more that you do dive deep into figuring out your inner child, figuring out your triggers and things like that, the easier it's going to be for you to understand what you need to heal and how you can go about doing that. So our journal prompt for chapter 2 is a little bit of an intense one, I'm not gonna lie to you. You're gonna choose an age range of somewhere between 2 to 5 years. So this might be age 7 to 10, it could be age 6 to 12, whatever it is, trying to get anywhere between 2 to 5 years and just narrowing down an age range that you feel like you have a lot of either negative or traumatizing memories from this time, or just a time where you're like, I for some reason really remember a lot of things from this age. And you're gonna write down as many stories as you can that you remember from this time period. So you might write down something like, I remember my dad yelling at me because I didn't finish my peas at dinner. And this might be a really strong memory in your brain because it's just embedded in there and you're like, he was so angry at me. He was so mad over the peas. And it could be something that you look back now and you're like, why the fuck was he mad at me about that? That doesn't even make any sense. Maybe you saw your parents fighting about something really intense at this time. Whatever it is, you're just going to try to get as clear of a picture on these memories as you possibly can. And now I also want you to try to get a clear picture of what you looked like during this time. So you can even use an old picture for this. That's actually what I did the first time that I did this prompt. And I now have that picture literally on my desk that I look at every single day because I just like to look at little me. She was so cute. And so now that we have all of these memories laid out, you're gonna use your adult big person brain here and kind of do some guesstimating. Or maybe it's not guesstimating, maybe you actually understand these things now a lot better than you did back then. So you might look back and say, oh, that time that my dad yelled at me over dinner about not eating my peas, we were actually about to lose the house at that time. So he wasn't actually mad at me about the peas. He was yelling at me because he was triggered by something else that was going on in his life that had nothing to do with me. You're gonna try to explain this situation to little you. I know it gets a little weird here when we start imagining our older selves talking to our younger selves, but I promise it's gonna make so much difference, and you can do this as like a meditative type of thing if you want, or you can just kind of imagine it as you're writing it out. And you're gonna try to explain the things that you remember to younger you, but from your adult perspective. So explaining to little you, like, your parents were about to lose their house at this time. That's why he was yelling at you. It's not because of anything that you did. It's not because you were bad or unlovable or doing anything wrong. You were doing the best that you could, and he was taking out anger on you. And there are so many things that you could do this for. If you had like an abusive parent or something, and now that you're an adult, you know, okay, my parent was on drugs during this time, you can go back and tell your younger self, like, this wasn't about you. Like, he was doing something that was completely his own choice and in his own life that should not have been put on you, but it was. And we can't change that, but we can explain it to our younger selves and slowly start that healing process. So your challenge for this phase is gonna be some nervous system healing. There are ways that we can heal our nervous system physically, and one of those ways is by cold exposure. Adding even just 30 seconds of cold water at the end of your shower can help reset your nervous system and get you to just calm down your nervous system a little bit. This is because things like cold exposure actually stimulate the vagus nerve, which can help you just heal your nervous system overall and just calm down a little bit more. Another great way to do this is by box breathing, very similar to the cold exposure. It's going to stimulate that vagus nerve, and box breathing is exactly what it sounds like. It's simply just breathing in, holding, breathing out, and holding for the same amount of time. So you might choose 3 seconds as your time that you want to do your box breathing for. So you're going to breathe in for 3 seconds, hold for 3 seconds, breathe out for 3 seconds, and hold for 3 seconds. Repeating this 5 to 10 times if you can. And as you get more experience with this, and as your lung capacity increases a little bit and you calm down a little bit more, you can increase that time. So maybe 5 seconds in, 5 seconds hold, etc. Chapter 3 is about self-care. So this is more about realizing what we really need and being able to provide it for ourselves. I know that when we think of self-care, we think of bubble baths and massages and things like that. And while that is great, and I'm not going to tell you not to do those things because they're wonderful, what I really mean is simply just being gentle with yourself in a way that maybe you've never been before. So this means doing everything we can to clear unnecessary stress from our life. And that's because unnecessary stress and negativity put so much anxiety in our bodies, which is the last thing that we need on this healing journey. And because self-care looks different for every single person, we are just focusing on ways to make your life easier, more enjoyable, and making life something that you can be more grateful for. Because, as I'm sure you know, gratitude is your mind's best friend. They are besties, they're locked in, they love each other, they want to make out all the time, they're besties. So this is a phase that we're going to focus on moving our body, whether that be just going on walks, doing an actual workout, doing a class, whatever it is, we are just focusing on getting our bodies moving. And that is because your body and your mind go hand in hand in so many ways, and not only does moving your body release norepinephrine, serotonin, dopamine, but it also helps move stagnant energy out of the body. And that is what we really want to focus on when we have past traumas, past anxieties, things that are stuck in us. We want to try to get that energy out of our body. And while it might not feel like it, working out or just moving your body in general is one of the biggest forms of self-care, because we are getting all of that energy out and we are just loosening up your body. So our main journal prompt for this chapter is we're going to list all of the 5 love languages in order of importance to you. So if you don't know the 5 love languages, it's physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, gift giving, and quality time. So you're going to list all 5 of those in the order of importance, how you like to receive love. Once you have all of those listed out, you're going to go through and write down a few ways that you can provide these love languages to yourself on a consistent basis. So for me, my love language is physical touch. So I like to buy myself really comfy clothes. I like to buy nice lotions, take a bubble bath whenever I can, do things that are allowing me to provide that love to myself. If your love language is gift giving, go get yourself a little treat. Go give yourself some nice little gifts. It doesn't even have to be anything expensive. Just getting yourself something and showing that love to yourself in a way that you can actually grasp. And then you can journal about how you're gonna feel once you can provide these love languages to yourself and give yourself that validation from an actual self-love perspective. And our challenge for this phase is to book a solo appointment for yourself. So whether that be a massage, a facial, you could even book yourself a tattoo appointment. The goal here is just to pencil in a time for yourself and commit to something that is outside of yourself that you have to go to, and that you have to say, okay, this time is for me. I'm penciling it in. I am gonna go do this thing for myself. And booking it ahead of time is so important, because that is holding yourself accountable. That is saying, that is for me. That's my time. I'm gonna go do that. And then once you've shown up to the appointment, you've done it, you've had a great time, you can use that as proof in your brain to be like, oh, I can do things for myself. I did this for me. And that is gonna help you so much in the future when you're going about solo dating or booking appointments for yourself or just doing things alone. A lot of times, if you're super codependent, you might even feel weird going to the grocery store alone. It might be an uncomfortable thing for you. So making an appointment and committing to it is a huge way that you're gonna be able to slowly come out of that. And I know it can feel scary, I know it can feel weird, especially for something like a massage. So maybe even starting with something where you have very little conversational interaction throughout the time. So maybe starting with like a nail appointment or like a pedicure or something. Even a massage is very little talking interaction. I know it might be like a little bit uncomfortable to get a massage if you've never had one, but 10 out of 10 recommend if that's your choice. But either way, you are just going and doing something for yourself that you are committed to. Our next chapter is about self-awareness. And the goal here is to learn the art of detachment and start to view our thoughts without judgment. So when we focus on our thoughts, we are essentially going to become a watcher of our thoughts. I've talked about The Power of Now, one of my favorite books in the entire world. I think everybody should read it. But the entire concept that it really bases around is becoming a watcher of your thoughts. So this means you're almost going to take the back seat of your brain for as long as you possibly can. You want to try to make that your default mode, is being in the back seat, watching your brain think the thoughts that it thinks and not attaching yourselves to them, not making it your identity and not getting super invested in the thoughts, just watching it from behind. So this means that sometimes you might even sit there and be watching your thoughts and see yourself go into a loop of like, my boyfriend hates me, he's mad at me, he hasn't answered my text, he's probably out cheating, he's probably doing this, blah, 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 blah. And when your thoughts are spiraling and going around that loop, you are actually in the back seat being like, holy fuck, what is this girl doing? Why is she thinking this? This means that we are trying to disconnect from our feelings and thoughts and just let them pass through us. This means that we are disconnecting from our emotions and our feelings and just allowing our feelings to pass through us. So we still want to feel them. We don't want to push down our emotions and be like, oh, I don't give a fuck about anything. I'm too good for emotions. No, we're still feeling our emotions, but we're just letting them go. We are letting them pass through as they happen, watching them, taking note, being like, that's interesting, and then letting it go. And one of the simplest ways to do this is just thinking about your thoughts as if they were happening to someone else. If you've ever seen someone who's very victim mindset based or really struggles with thoughts like that, and you've seen them going into a loop or into a spiral, you know exactly what it's like to watch this happen in real time. And you can see them start thinking thoughts like, oh my God, they probably did this because they hate me. Everybody hates me. Why does everyone hate me? I hate myself. I can't believe I would do this. I'm so dumb, blah, blah, blah. And it happens so fast sometimes that watching from an actual outside perspective, you're like, whoa, how did we end up here? What is going on? And that's kind of what you have to learn to do in your own mind. In the same way that you would ask your friend questions like, hey, why would you even say that? Like, where does that come from? What made you think that? Like, just asking questions to try to get to the root of it. You have to start doing that in your own brain. So when you're in the back seat and you're seeing yourself going through this crazy spiral or thinking things that are just completely pulled out of thin air based on maybe one overthinking thought, you have to sit back there and be like, hey girl, what's going on here? Why are you thinking this? What basis does this even have? And starting to slowly unpack things from your backseat perspective. And I know this can all get very confusing and weird to try to grasp, but once you start doing it, it's really, one, not that weird, and two, makes so much sense once you start doing it. I even recently heard someone say to accomplish this, a great way to think about it is like you are the first person character in a video game. So you're just seeing everything, but you're actually you playing the game, being like, okay, well, what's going on here? And then when those little thought bubbles pop up on the video game and they're like, I don't play video games, so I really don't know why I'm running with this analogy, but we're gonna pretend it makes sense, okay? When those thought bubbles pop up on a video game or whatever, and it's like, oh my God, my only like video game knowledge is this Mary-Kate and Ashley PlayStation game I used to play. And when I think of this analogy, that's what I think of. And so I imagine like when I'm playing the Mary-Kate and Ashley video game and a thought bubble would pop up like, oh my God, she stole my outfit. I'm playing the game being like, no, she didn't. Like, let's just go change your outfit. Let's go into this little shopping mall part of the game and change your outfit to solve this problem. And you are problem solving from the outside perspective as if you were playing a video game. So our main journal prompt for this chapter is going to be a little bit more simple, okay? I promise I'm giving you a little bit of a break from all the deep mental work, but we're going to analyze how do other people's emotions affect you. So maybe recently your mom was having a breakdown and she was just being super emotional and very loud and very just a lot. And you were sitting there like, oh my God, I feel really drained just watching this happen. And then it's affecting your mood, it's affecting your emotions. Maybe you even notice that you're picking up on some of her energy and you're starting to get annoyed about things because you're in a room with somebody else who's annoyed about things. So you're just gonna think of any scenarios maybe recently or maybe something that you're thinking about from a while ago that happened, and just analyze how this person's mood or emotions actually affected you. And what impact did that have on you? Did it make you start acting like this person? Did it change how you felt about your day? Did it change how you were processing your emotions in that moment? Really just trying to see what this caused. And then we're gonna think, how can we detach our emotions from the behavior of other people? So if someone is yelling at me, how can I take a moment to detach myself from that and find coping mechanisms that are gonna work for myself to be like, okay, this person's yelling, but it's probably not actually because of anything that I did. It's probably because they're either an angry person, that's how they process their emotions, maybe they're super triggered and they haven't dealt with it, and trying to find ways to cope in the moment when things happen to you like that, or when you're around things. If you have a boss who gets super angry, just thinking about things that you can do throughout your day to prepare you in case you end up in a situation like that at any point throughout your day. This goes for any coping mechanism. It sucks, but you have to prepare the coping mechanisms during times when you don't need them. Because when you actually need them, they need to be just automatic responses. You need to be able to turn it on and be like, okay, that coping mechanism that I planned and that I thought about and that I tried to wire into my brain a few months ago, I actually need it right now. So I need to turn that bitch on. But if you don't already have those coping mechanisms pre-made, pre-thought of, and pre-planned out, when you're actually in the moment that you need them, your brain is scrambling. It's like, oh fuck, I actually don't know what to do because I didn't plan how I would react in a situation like this. So we have to figure out how to plan those coping mechanisms ahead of time and detach ourselves from whatever other people are going to be throwing at us, because that's an unfortunate part of life. But everybody is constantly projecting their own thoughts and emotions onto you. And so along with that prompt, your challenge for this chapter is to analyze other people's attachment styles, whether it be people that you're interacting with throughout your day, maybe content creators that you're watching, YouTubers, whatever, or TV shows that you like to watch, trying to assess the characters or the real people that you're interacting with, whatever, and analyzing what attachment style you think they have. So if you're watching someone and you're like, you kind of look like you're anxious attachment, you kind of look like me a little bit, I see how you are showing codependent tendencies in everyday activities that you're doing. And you can start to see it in other people. And once you start to notice it in other people, it's going to become so much easier to notice it within yourself. And this helps so much because once you get your brain used to watching shows and being like, that person's super avoidant, like, oh my God, they really have an avoidant attachment style, you can start to notice times when maybe you're displaying signs of an avoidant attachment style or an anxious attachment style or whatever it may be, because now you're used to looking at those things and just analyzing them, not judging them and not saying, oh my God, I can't believe that person's so avoidant, like, ew, that's gross, she needs to fix that. Just analyzing it, because this is going to make it so much easier if you're about to start going back into the dating realm or even making friends. You can start to look at things before you even get too deep into it, and you can be like, that person is super avoidant, like that might affect our relationship in the future, or this person, even as a friend, is a super anxious person, so that might be something I need to take into account whenever I become friends with them. Or if they start to get super offended by things, or maybe they're starting fights and you're like, okay, I can see that this person is super anxious, so that helps me to understand how they might be feeling whenever we're going through certain situations. Chapter 5 is all about self-validation, and this is something that could literally be an entire video in itself, but I'm gonna give you the rundown here. Because when you're codependent, your brain can become super obsessed with whoever you have your mind set on at that time. It's really hard for you to validate yourself because you are constantly looking for them to validate you. Even if they're not directly validating you, you're taking things like a text back, an Instagram post, like little things that aren't maybe even actually validation on their part, but you are creating it as validation in your head. And the crazy part is, as a codependent person, you're gonna have this level of obsession with whoever you date. Even if they are the worst person that you've ever met in your entire life, you are like, I'm obsessed. I literally need them to validate me 24/7 or I'm gonna explode. And that's because as codependents, we convince ourselves that every single person is our soulmate because we want it so badly. We just see that, we maybe see it in other people, we might see it in movies, TV shows, whatever, and we're like, I want that. So every person that comes into my life, that's gotta be it. That's gonna be our outcome. And you're gonna keep doing that with every single person you meet until you heal this. And first, I feel like it's very important to know, and I don't hear a lot of people talk about this, but the need for validation or the want for validation is never going to completely go away. It's not gonna just magically vanish once you're healed or once you're in a healthy relationship or once you feel confident in yourself. That need is never going to fully disappear. And that's because every single person experiences the want or the desire to be validated. And that's in friendships, that's in relationships, whatever it is, we are humans and we're going around our lives being like, hey, I would like this person to acknowledge that I mean something to them, or that they like what I'm wearing, or they like what I did with my hair, or they like whatever. And this isn't even in necessarily a romantic or even like a sexual validation sense. It's just about wanting to be validated. And so all of the self-awareness work that we just went over and that we just mapped out for ourselves is really going to come into play here, because you have to learn how to acknowledge when you want validation. Because again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. In my current relationship, I'm constantly like, hey, I feel a little bit off today. I could really use some validation. And that's not something that is honestly probably ever going to go away. That's something that I did work to be able to communicate with my boyfriend, and I got very lucky to have found somebody who is open to that communication and is like, okay, what can I do? How can I fix this? What do you need from me? Whatever. And if you're single, you have to be able to be like, okay, I'm really craving this validation right now. What can I do to try to validate myself? And this is still something that I do even in a relationship, because I'm like, okay, do I actually want his validation, or is there something that I can give myself that would give me the same feeling? Because maybe I'm just insecure about something right now, or maybe I'm overthinking, or maybe I just need to figure out how to validate myself in this moment. And once you realize that it's happening, you can either use your coping mechanisms, maybe try to find a way to self-soothe, or give yourself love in one of the 5 love languages like we talked about earlier. And you can also use affirmations here. And I've talked about affirmations in the past. I've had a rocky road with affirmations. I do have a love-hate relationship with them. And you might too. You might think that affirmations are dumb and that they're stupid and they don't work and that they feel weird to do. And I get it. They do feel really weird to do. But I really do think that using the proper affirmations has been one of the biggest things that helped me rebuild my confidence and start to validate myself in a way that actually felt good to me. So as I talked about in one of my last podcasts about affirmations, I do think it's very important to start with realistic affirmations. So a great one for codependence might be, I have so much love to give and I deserve it myself. And this is a fact. This is not something that is arguable or that your brain could be like, that's not true, because one thing codependents have is love, bitch. We have so much of it to give. We are constantly like, please let me love you. Please, I'm literally begging you. And we might not be comfortable giving that love to ourselves yet, but what we can do is tell ourselves, I have this love. I deserve this love. Maybe I'm not able to give it to myself yet, but I deserve to be given this love by myself. And so either starting with that or starting with another affirmation that you wholeheartedly believe and that you know is true is a great way to start with affirmations and to slowly build up your confidence and your trust in yourself to get to a place where you can start using affirmations like, I love myself, I validate myself, I enjoy spending time alone. Just starting with affirmations that are small and simple and believable is the key here to slowly getting to affirmations that are going to be a little bit more intense. Our journal prompt for this chapter is we are going to write down all of the times in either recent times, maybe just times in general in your life, whenever you can think of that you've been seeking external validation. And you're going to write these down and describe where you were at, what was going on, what went through your mind in this moment, how you noticed that you were seeking validation, did you get the validation, just kind of giving, again, a summary of this situation as it happened. And the goal here, yet again, is to try to find the common themes of each one of these situations. So were you in the same place in each one? Was it the same kind of situation in each one? Maybe you were feeling insecure in your outfit in each one of these situations. That could be a common theme or a common trigger that we need to address and be like, okay, what's going on here? Why did I think that? Why do I feel that? And we are just trying to find the theme of the matter. Maybe even seeing if it's a certain person that you're around when you feel this. We are just addressing it head on here and just really looking at it to see what's going on? Where is this stemming from? And I want you to try to think of how you can combat this in the future. So if it's something that's an easy fix, like, oh, I feel like I want validation when I wear this certain outfit, maybe we don't wear that outfit for a little bit. Maybe we wear things that we're fully confident in. Maybe that we are feeling really good in our body about, and things that we don't think about what other people are thinking when we wear it, until we can get to a point where we can wear whatever and not have to think about that external validation. Or maybe you feel like you are constantly around other couples when you're thinking about this validation. This is something that's going to depend on your level of friendships, but if possible, you could even maybe look at your friends when you go out and be like, hey, I really feel like when I'm around you and your boyfriend, or when I'm around all of these couples, I get a little bit uncomfortable and a little uneasy, and I start wanting validation from outside sources, and being like, hey, could we maybe just do like a girls' night next time, or maybe just doing this, and slowly building up that confidence so that you can get to a place where you can be around couples and be like, I don't even give a fuck what anybody else thinks in here right now. You can also try to think of some affirmations. Again, we are creating this stuff ahead of time because in the moment that we actually need it, we need it to be on autopilot. We need to be able to be like, okay, what were those affirmations that I was thinking about whenever I want validation? I need to tell myself. You need to have them on lock. Whether you write them down, whether you just memorize them, whatever it is, you need to have them ready to go, ready to fire. So try to think of some affirmations that you can give yourself in these moments ahead of time so that when you actually need them, you can just jump right to them and use them to validate yourself. And your challenge for this chapter is to compliment yourself at least once a day. And I know this can feel very uncomfortable, and you don't even necessarily have to do it fully in a mirror. I would recommend it if possible, but definitely not necessary. The goal is to get really comfortable looking at yourself as if you were looking at someone that you love, because again, that is the end goal here, is to love ourselves, to validate ourselves, and to not need that validation from anybody else. So we want to get to a place where we can look in the mirror and be like, I have such beautiful eyes, I love my hair, I love my nose, I love my lips, whatever it is, and really mean it, and to fully look at ourselves as if we're looking at somebody that we love, because we would never look at somebody that we love and be like, her nose is a little bit crooked, I don't really like how her lips look, like her eyebrows are a little wonky. Like, there are just certain things you're not going to think when you're looking at someone that you love. So why are we thinking those things when we look at ourselves? And so maybe this means doing some deeper work on that area too, and trying to find ways to combat negative self-belief, maybe body dysmorphia, facial dysmorphia, whatever it is. You might have to do some work in that aspect as well. But you can also do this task even without doing all of that deep work. You can simply find something that you actually do like about yourself, whether it be, I love my nails, I love this one freckle that is underneath my eye. Whatever it is, you can find something that you love about yourself. There has to be at least one thing. I do not care how long it takes you to figure it out in the mirror. It could literally even be, I love my boobs, I love my butt. Whatever it is, you have something. You just have to figure out what it is, and you have to compliment yourself on it at least once a day. Chapter 6 is all about self-love, and not in the way that you would think, because boundaries are one of the biggest forms of self-love. And when you're a codependent person, our boundaries typically fly out the window. They are gone. We let people walk all over us. We're like, I can't even remember what boundaries I wanted to hold because they're just doing whatever they want, and I just have to let them because otherwise they're gonna leave me. And if you've ever seen someone who is a secure attachment or fully confident in who they are and knows what they want, you might see them inputting boundaries and be like, oh my God, that's so rude, I can't believe they would do that. But in reality, that's just a very healthy thing to do. Within reason, of course. You're not going to look at somebody and be like, my boundary is that you actually have to kiss the floor that I walk on and you have to let me spit on you. Like, that's not a boundary, that's just someone being a fucking weirdo. But maybe when you see someone be like, hey, I don't answer text messages after 6 p.m., you might look at that and be like, oh my God, that's so rude, I can't believe they would do that. But that's just a boundary that they've input into their life and for the people that are around them. And because they're stating it and they're being honest about it, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a very healthy thing to do. And so as codependents, we look at that and we're like, they hate me. They're doing this because they literally hate me. They don't want to talk to me. They don't want me in their life. They want me to leave them alone forever. And we catastrophize this because we're used to giving someone constant access to us 24/7. And a boundary might be something as small as like, I'm no longer going to text this one person because I know that it's going to leave me feeling upset, overthinking, or just not great. And so I'm going to stop texting this person because it's not something that I want to indulge in. Or maybe not going to a certain place because you know that you're going to be searching for your ex if you go there. You can just take small little things to slowly implement boundaries that are not even necessarily about other people, but just boundaries that are for yourself and can help you prevent going into a spiral that is not going to be great for you. And boundaries might even just be saying no to your friends when they want to go out because you know that you want to have a night at home to journal and maybe watch a movie, do a bubble bath, whatever it is, just saying no might feel hard, and it's probably going to suck a little bit, and you might even be like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm gonna miss out on so much, blah blah blah. But if you know that you need that night at home, you need to stand firm in that boundary and be like, no, like next time I definitely will go, whatever, like love you guys, no hard feelings, whatever. You have to remind yourself that this is your life and nobody has to live your life or live in your mind but you. So nobody else's opinion matters. And if setting a certain boundary is going to keep you from overthinking and keep your mind clear, you need to set it, because again, nobody else is in your mind but you. And if you set a boundary and someone chooses not to follow it, that doesn't say anything about you at all. That says more about them and their lack of respect for you than it does about anything else. And that doesn't mean that you're not worthy of respect, but it just means that maybe this person is struggling with their own things, and maybe they're also struggling with levels of codependency. You have no idea. So our general prompt for this chapter is to ask yourself, what ways might you be sabotaging your ability to trust yourself by not setting boundaries? I'm gonna say that again, because the first time that I read this, I was like, what the fuck does that even mean? When you do not set boundaries, that is telling yourself that you don't trust yourself. You don't trust yourself enough to know what's good for you versus what's not good for you, and you don't think that you're worthy of setting boundaries to keep people from walking all over you. That is what you're telling yourself when you refuse to set boundaries. So in what ways are you doing this? What lines are you letting people cross? Why are you letting them cross it? And how does it make you feel when you let people cross those lines? And really ask yourself, are you more focused on protecting other people or protecting yourself? And if you're more focused on protecting other people and their feelings and their emotions and what they're gonna think, why? Again, you are the only one that lives in your mind. Nobody else is living in your mind. So why are you letting yourself suffer to protect other people? They are grown adults. They can handle their own emotions. If they're upset by something, they'll deal with it, because that's what normal, healthy people do. Our challenge for this phase is to commit to yourself. So think about a promise that you have broken to yourself. Maybe it's, I said I was gonna go to that workout class last week and I didn't end up going, I just slept through it. Whatever it is, think about something that you've broken and go fulfill that promise to yourself, because you deserve it, and you have to teach yourself that you are worthy of following through with things that you said that you were gonna do. Last chapter, chapter 7, we are talking about relationships. Romantic or platonic, we are understanding how to rebuild or build relationships without losing ourselves here. So it is very important as a codependent, especially if you took some time to really go about this healing journey and take some time away from dating and just kind of focus on being by yourself. That's personally what I did. I took a few months and just was really focused on dialing in on my healing journey and just getting alone and getting comfortable with being alone. And so when I started dating again, when I started hanging out with my friends again and doing things like that, I had to be so aware to not jump back into my old habits. And that means that everything that we've worked up to this point, we can't just stop doing once we think, oh my God, I'm healed, I'm fine now, I don't have to keep doing this. You have to continue to be a watcher of your thoughts. You have to continue to be analytical and think about things and use your coping mechanisms. Keep them on hand, keep them on autopilot. Remember those affirmations that we've been starting. You have to keep those things on the front of your mind, because until you get to a point that they are so natural and so embedded into you, it's going to be hard, and you're going to be minutes away from just jumping back into old habits. And I know this sounds so exhausting, but I want you to think about all of the previous relationships and things that you've been in. You've probably had a moment during those where you're like, I know this isn't right for me. I know this isn't what I want. I know this doesn't align with my future, with my goals, whatever. And you stayed in it anyway. So you have to think back to those moments and be like, okay, I had this thought before, so I'm going to have a similar feeling if something is not right for me in the future. And all you can do is think to yourself, next time I get that feeling, I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to do something about it. And that is one of the best ways that you can provide self-love for yourself, is by trusting that gut feeling and trusting what you already know in your heart. And you can't forget about solo dating once you're in a relationship. That is one of the biggest keys here. I still try to go on a solo date at least once a month because I just love them. I think they're so great. They're so much fun. Even if it's just something as simple as going out to get dinner by myself or going to a happy hour alone or whatever it might be, just taking that time for myself is so key. And I notice such a difference in myself when I'm not keeping up with that. And that foundation of love and respect that you have for yourself when you're doing solo dates and when you're going through this healing journey is something that you have to keep up with when you get into relationships or even friendships, because the second you lose that, you are right back to where you started. You have to keep that foundation, and not to say that that's going to make the other person respect you more, but the other person is definitely going to notice if you don't have that respect for yourself and if you're letting them just walk all over you. So our prompt for this final chapter is you're going to list all of the attributes, characteristics, whatever it is that you desire in your future partner. All of them, write them all down, everything from how they treat you, what they like, what they enjoy doing, all of it. And then you're going to think of all the ways that you can embody these characteristics or these traits yourself. Think of how you can do those things that you want somebody else to do for you. How can you do those for yourselves starting right now? And your final challenge is to make plans with a friend, a partner, or maybe a potential partner to go somewhere that you have already ventured to on a solo date. This is going to help you so much to have kind of an upper hand in this moment. If you're going somewhere that you've already been alone and you've already gotten comfortable in this space by yourself, and then you're going with somebody else, you're gonna feel so much more confident and just secure in that situation, no matter who you're with. And this is gonna allow you to really be more present and just focus on the time that you have with this person and just enjoy yourself. Even if you're just going with a friend or someone you haven't seen in a while, you're gonna be able to just sit there and really enjoy the conversation, try to not get lost in thought, and just appreciate the time that you have with this other person. And that is all 7 steps to how I healed my codependency, how I started to go towards a more secure attachment, and how I started to validate myself and work through some of those traumas that were a little bit too deep rooted for me to see from an outside perspective. Like I said, I highly, highly recommend solo dating. That is one of the biggest keys in this entire process. So I'm gonna list a bunch of my favorite solo dates on the screen here. So I'm gonna list a bunch of my favorite solo dates down below in the description. I do still try to go on solo dates at least once a month. You can follow me on Instagram to see those if you want. But until next time, be kind to your mind, to your body, and to others, and happy healing.